Story 4. The Treasure in the Forest by H.G. Wells. Summary. In the short story, The Treasure in the Forest, author H.G. Wells weaves a tale of greed, treachery, and the consequences of one's actions. The story is set in a remote jungle, where two men, Evans and Hooker, become obsessed with the idea of finding hidden treasure. Their quest for wealth leads them to commit a heinous act, the murder of a Chinese man named Chanhai, who possessed a valuable treasure map. After stealing the map from Chanhai, the two men set off on a perilous journey through the dense jungle, following the vague directions on the map. Along the way, they encounter a pile of stones that marks the treasure's location. However, they also discover the lifeless body of a Chinese man, who had apparently been digging for the treasure before his untimely death. Believing him to be a rival treasure seeker, Evans and Hooker proceed to collect the gold ingots lying around the dead man's pit. Unbeknownst to them, Chanhai had cunningly booby-trapped the treasure with thorns dipped in a deadly poison. As Evans fills his jacket with the gold, he accidentally pricks himself with one of the thorns. Within a short time, he begins to convulse and suffers excruciating pain. Realizing the danger, Hooker tries to help but also pricks himself. Both men endure unimaginable agony as the poison takes its toll on their bodies. In the midst of their suffering, Hooker envisions Changhai's sly smile, realizing that the Chinese man had strategically laid the trap to protect his wealth from theft. The poison proves fatal for Evans, who dies in agony, leaving Hooker alone with the treasure. Desperate to escape the same fate, Hooker tries to suck the poison out of his wound, but it's too late. He too succumbs to the deadly effects of the trap and dies beside the still-twitching corpse of his friend. The Treasure in the Forest serves as a cautionary tale, warning against the destructive nature of greed and the consequences of unethical actions. The characters' relentless pursuit of wealth leads them to commit a heinous act and ultimately results in their own demise. Wells skillfully crafts the story's dark atmosphere, highlighting the jungle's isolation and the characters' moral deterioration as they descend into greed-driven madness. The story serves as a stark reminder that the pursuit of riches at the expense of others can lead to tragic and irreversible consequences. Understanding the text. Answer the following questions. Describe the expository scene of the story. In the expository scene of The Treasure in the Forest, the main characters, Evans and Hooker, are introduced as they sail in a boat, holding a mysterious treasure map. Their curiosity and greed become apparent as they try to decipher the map's symbols and directions, revealing their intentions for embarking on the adventure. The scene establishes the atmosphere of mystery and foreboding as they approach a dense forest, setting the stage for their treasure-seeking journey. Evans and Hooker's dialogue provides crucial insights into their motives, showcasing their willingness to go to extreme lengths to find the hidden Spanish treasure. This scene hints at the dangers and challenges that await them, laying the foundation for the unfolding suspenseful narrative. What does the map look like and how do Evan and Hooker interpret it? In The Treasure in the Forest, Evans and Hooker examine the old and slightly torn treasure map, determined to decode its symbols. Despite the map's age and unclear markings, they manage to interpret the directions. Believing that the dotted lines on the map lead to the hidden treasure, they set their course for this mysterious destination. Driven by their greed and excitement, they embark on a journey into the dense forest, eager to uncover the Spanish treasure they believe awaits them. The anticipation of what they might find adds an element of suspense to their quest, and they are willing to face whatever challenges lie ahead to reach the supposed location of the hidden riches. The stage is set for a thrilling and dangerous adventure as they follow the map's clues to the dotted lines area, hoping it will lead them to the long-awaited treasure. How did Evan and Hooker know about the treasure? In the dense forest, Evans and Hooker come across a group of Chinese men hiding behind trees. They overhear the men discussing the lost Spanish treasure, which piques their curiosity. The Chinese man, Chanhai, reveals that he knows about the treasure's location, and it is buried and protected in a secret place. Evans and Hooker, driven by greed, become aware of the valuable opportunity before them. They decide to take matters into their own hands, planning to steal Changhai's treasure map and claim the hidden riches for themselves. The revelation of the treasure's existence adds an element of excitement and danger to their journey, as they become determined to find and secure the Spanish treasure, setting the stage for a suspenseful and ominous adventure in the forest. D. Describe Evan's dream. In a dream, Evans envisions himself and Hooker in the forest at night with a specific goal in mind: finding the treasure. They stumble upon 3 Chinese men sitting around a campfire, discussing the hidden gold. Changli, one of the men, had previously stolen the treasure from a ship and hid it on the island. Evans and Hooker listen intently as they hear about Changli's plan to seek assistance from the other Chinese men to retrieve the treasure, providing them with a map. Fueled by greed, Evans decides to take matters into his own hands and ruthlessly assassinates Changli during a confrontation. This dream sets the stage for the upcoming events, foreshadowing the dark and dangerous path that Evans and Hooker will take in their quest for the hidden Spanish treasure. E. What do the 2 treasure hunters see when they walk towards the island? As Evans and Hooker venture deeper into the forest, they encounter tall shrubs and clear a path through them. Along their journey, they stumble upon an intriguing sight: large white blooms. However, the mood turns eerie when they come across the lifeless face of a deceased Chinese man lying face down on the grass. Undeterred, they press on and finally reach their destination at the bank of the island. There, they are met with the sight of 3 palm trees and numerous shrubs, which appear to be significant landmarks on their quest for the hidden treasure. The scene is filled with a sense of mystery and anticipation as Evans and Hooker get closer to the potential location of the Spanish gold. F. In what condition did the treasure hunters find the dead man? As Evans and Hooker continue their journey through the forest, they stumble upon the decaying body of a Chinese man. The body is swollen and partially decomposed, indicating that it had been there for quite some time. As they cautiously move forward, cutting through dense shrubs and large white blooms, Evans examines the corpse and identifies it as a Chinese man. The head of the deceased is mutilated, and it becomes apparent that the man had met a violent end. Despite the gruesome discovery, Evans and Hooker notice that there are some gold ingots remaining near the body, suggesting that the deceased had possibly found part of the hidden treasure before meeting his tragic fate. The scene is filled with tension and mystery as the treasure hunters are faced with the harsh realities of their quest for riches. G. How did the treasure hunters try to carry gold ingots to the canoe? As Evans and Hooker attempt to take as much gold as they can back to their boat, tragedy strikes. Evans, filled with greed and determination, fills his jacket with gold ingots, but soon he starts experiencing excruciating pain and convulsions. He collapses, showing the deadly consequence of their actions. Despite witnessing his friend's suffering, Hooker's hunger for gold overpowers his concern, and he continues gathering the scattered ingots. However, the thorns protecting the treasure inflict severe injuries on both men. The story concludes with both treasure seekers lying in pain and misery, their greed having led them to a brutal and unfortunate fate. The narrative serves as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of greed and the consequences of pursuing wealth without ethical consideration. H. How were Evan and Hooker poisoned? In their pursuit of the hidden treasure, Evans and Hooker encounter a dangerous obstacle. Thorns protecting the valuable ingots is shown on the map. As they attempt to carry the gold to their canoe, Evans begins to experience arm pain and falls to the ground. Despite his suffering, he encourages Hooker to continue with the plan. However, as Hooker picks up the ingots, he is pricked by a thorn and gets poisoned. The thorn pierces his thumb, leading to dire consequences for both men. The story ends with both treasure seekers poisoned and suffering the consequences of their greed-driven actions. The presence of the thorn serves as a fatal warning against the reckless pursuit of wealth without considering the potential dangers and ethical implications. Reference to the context. How do you know the story is set on a tropical island? I can say with certainty that the story is set on a tropical island because the people in this story seem weary and thirsty because of their long nighttime journey and the intense heat on the island. In this story, we've seen a tropical island that's long since been abandoned by humans, but it's still desolated. The temperature on the tropical island is very hot. The location alone tells me the story takes place on a tropical island. This story takes place in the rainforest, and two characters discover a river and cool down in it to satisfy their thirst. A tropical island will have dense shrubs and large white blooms like those the characters encounter on their journey. There is a scorching climate on this island in the story. Overall, in terms of climate, ecosystems, and other details, the story clearly shows that it takes place on a tropical island, as shown by the presence of palm trees, prickly shrubs, seagrass, and other sea life. B. Why do you think Evan and Hooker took such a risk of finding the buried treasure on a desert island? When greed wins, a man becomes ready to go to any level. It makes people become more resilient in the face of adversity. Evans and Hooker, in my opinion, took such a big risk by searching for hidden riches on a desolate island to become wealthy. They rob a Chinese guy of his map and kill him. They do so because of their desire to become wealthy and successful. They're on the lookout for a wonderful opportunity to enhance their standard of living. Another reason for taking the risk could also be because their financial situation was precarious. They will stop at nothing to improve their miserable living circumstances. C. Do you think the narrator of the story is racist? If yes, what made him feel superior to other races? Racial prejudices or hostility toward others due to their ethnicity or minority status. The story illustrates Evan and Hooker as superior to the Chinese guy. 2 Englishmen and 3 Chinese men, he says. His character has been unfairly treated due to his bigotry. His descriptions of the people show racial disparities. The plot clearly shows the narrator's racist thoughts. The narrator establishes his authority by telling a story and describing the characters and events in first person. His character addressing is asymmetric. Slurs of race or ethnicity have been used to refer to characters. 2 Englishmen murder an unarmed Chinese named Shanghai. In this sense, he is showing that the Englishman is superior to the Chinese. In this passage, the narrator shows Englishmen superior to Chinese men. Chinese men have always been portrayed as oppressed minorities. Author assessment appears biased in this story. Throughout the story, the narrator appears superior. So, I think the narrator is racist. D. What do you think is the moral of the story? In The Treasure in the Forest, the story highlights the destructive consequences of greed and the fragility of material possessions. The 2 Englishmen, Evans and Hooker, are driven by their desire for the hidden treasure, which ultimately leads to their downfall. Their pursuit of wealth and power corrupts them, and they become blind to the dangers they face. The story serves as a cautionary tale, warning against the detrimental effects of greed and the importance of valuing more than just material wealth. It reminds readers to prioritize ethics and humility over the pursuit of material possessions, as greed can have devastating repercussions on one's life and relationships. The story delivers a powerful message about the negative consequences of greed and the importance of finding contentment and fulfillment in other aspects of life beyond mere material gain. Reference beyond text. Interpret the story as a mystery story. The Treasure in the Forest is a gripping and dark adventure story that explores the corrupting power of greed. The tale revolves around 2 treasure seekers, Evans and Hooker, who murder a Chinese man named Shanghai to steal his treasure map. The map leads to a cache of gold ingots hidden on an island. As they follow the map, they find the identifying pile of stones but also discover the bloated corpse of a Chinese man who had been digging for the treasure. Believing him to be Shanghai's henchman attempting to claim the wealth for himself, Evans and Hooker decide to take the gold back to their boat. However, unknown to them, Shanghai had booby-trapped the treasure with poisonous thorns. Evans pricks himself with a thorn, and soon after, he becomes incapacitated and convulses in pain. Hooker, unaware of the danger, accidentally pricks himself too. Both men suffer terribly as the poison takes its toll. Evans dies first, leaving Hooker alone with the treasure and the twitching corpse of his friend. As Hooker succumbs to the poison, he imagines Shanghai's sinister smile, realizing that the Chinese man had set the trap to protect his wealth. The story ends with Hooker dying next to his deceased friend, surrounded by white petals from an unfamiliar flower, carried by the breeze. The Treasure in the Forest is a cautionary tale, showcasing the destructive consequences of unchecked greed and the dark paths it can lead people down. The story serves as a reminder that pursuing wealth at the expense of others can ultimately result in tragedy and ruin. Remember a treasure hunting story you read in your childhood and compare and contrast it with The Treasure in the Forest. Treasure hunting is a favorite subject of children's stories. Blood Diamond and The Treasure in the Forest are two distinct stories that revolve around the theme of valuable gemstones, but they differ significantly in terms of their settings, characters, and overall messages. Blood Diamond is set during the Sierra Leone Civil War in the late 1990s, where illegal diamond trade fuels the conflict and perpetuates violence and suffering. The story takes place in a war-torn and politically charged environment, highlighting the dark side of the diamond industry and its impact on innocent lives. On the other hand, The Treasure in the Forest is a suspenseful adventure story set in an unspecified location, possibly a remote island with a dense forest. The story follows two treasure hunters, Evans and Hooker, as they search for hidden Spanish treasure. Unlike Blood Diamond, the setting in The Treasure in the Forest is more of a traditional adventure tale without the backdrop of a real-world conflict. In Blood Diamond, the main characters are Solomon Vandy, a fisherman abducted and forced to work in the diamond mines, Danny Archer, a cynical diamond smuggler, and Matty Bowen, a courageous journalist. The three characters come from different backgrounds and have distinct motivations, but they are united in their quest to expose the illicit diamond trade's horrors. In contrast, The Treasure in the Forest revolves around two main characters, Evans and Hooker, both motivated by greed and the pursuit of wealth. Their journey to find the treasure is driven solely by their desire for personal gain, without any larger societal implications like in Blood Diamond. The primary message of Blood Diamond is to shed light on the devastating consequences of conflict diamonds and the need for ethical practices in the diamond industry. The film explores the role of diamonds in funding violence, the exploitation of innocent people, and the importance of raising awareness and taking responsibility for one's actions. On the other hand, The Treasure in the Forest focuses more on the consequences of greed and the corrupting influence of wealth. The story illustrates how the characters' pursuit of the treasure leads to their downfall, emphasizing the destructive nature of unbridled desire for material riches. In conclusion, while both Blood Diamond and The Treasure in the Forest revolve around valuable gemstones, they differ in their settings, characters, and messages. Blood Diamond is a powerful exploration of the diamond industry's dark side and its impact on conflict-ridden regions, while The Treasure in the Forest is a suspenseful adventure that highlights the destructive consequences of unchecked greed. Both stories offer valuable insights into the human condition and the ethical dilemmas surrounding precious commodities. Best of luck!